Meanwhile, Chief Economic Advisor Arvind Subramanian has argued against abolishing income tax, a proposal that has been sort of very fervently put forth by many conservative economists, saying that India should just simply do away with the income tax. He was speaking at a CNBC TV18 event. The Chief Economic Advisor said that the government should look at a carefully balanced set of policies using carrot and stick approach to expand the tax base and deter tax evasion and promote what he calls a voluntary tax payment. How will we do that? Let's take a listen in to what he proposed.
I think the latest data show that we have about 53 to 54 million taxpayers. Now, if you kind of always in India, you put a number and then the denominator is the population, and if you say 1.2 billion people, that's a really, really low number of taxpayers. We have out of those 54 million, 17 million people file, but they don't actually pay taxes because they're kind of exempt from taxes. And there are about 37 million who actually pay taxes. And I think the number that's recently got a lot of attention is that the number of people who declare that they have income greater than 10 lakhs is only about 2.4 million people. I think that's a really, really low number, and I think we need to work on that. But the number I look at as an economist is actually the number of taxpayers to voters in the Indian economy, and I'll explain why. And that number is actually very, very low in the world. Compared to other countries in the world, probably amongst the lowest, especially for democracies. That number is about 6 to 7%, the number of taxpayers to voters, and it's been very stubborn over time. For about 40 years, we've barely budged up on that number, and that, I think, gives you a sense of the challenge. So that's what we're confronted with and what we need to change. So the question that comes up, the second question that comes up is, why is it important? Why do you need people to be paying taxes? And all of you know all the very good reasons for doing this, but I want to give you a historical perspective on this. The history of economic development shows that all societies that develop their political and economic institutions always do that on the basis of tax paying. So it's like you can't have good representation without taxation. Because what does tax paying do? It builds this two-way relationship between citizens and the government. In a sense, taxpayers have skin in the game. If you pay taxes, you want to hold the guy to whom you're paying taxes responsible. So that creates this civic relationship between taxpayers and government, which actually is terribly, terribly important for, all long-run economic development. So I would say that, any ideas that we should abolish the income tax, I think we should greet with a great skepticism. Of course, I think in this business of tax paying, there are sticks and there are carrots. I think the sticks are clear. I think we do need deterrence. Deterrence does work. We do need better enforcement and administration. All these things work because, after all, taxpayers are making a rational calculation. Will I get caught if I don't pay taxes? How easy is that? So in that sense, I think we do need credible sticks. The government needs to be seen to be, effective in enforcing these things. But as I think many of you have said, and the panel discussion threw up, I think there has to be a kind of carrot element to that as well. That tax paying should not just be an obligation, it must be also voluntary. People should want to pay taxes. And I think that is, in some sense, the challenge. Now, how can you get people to want to pay taxes? I think one, of course, the system must basically be seen to be fair. You pay taxes if you think many people like you are paying taxes. So that's one sense in which it has to be fair. And of course, the other sense in which you induce compliance is by the comfort or the confidence or the reassurance that you provide that the money that you put in is well spent.